Hi and welcome to my channel. In this video, we are going to create an AI auditor for auditing smart contracts. We will develop both a command line interface where we will deploy it as an NPM package and a web app where you can paste your smart contracts for auditing. We will be using Next.js, Tailwind CSS, the OpenAI API, TypeScript, and more. This is a step-by-step project suitable for beginners and advanced software engineers alike. You will learn a lot in this one video. Stick with me until the end and let's build this amazing app together. This page is the NPM page for our package AuditAI CLI. You can install it using yarn or NPM. Heading to the website, you can copy a smart contract code, paste it into this beautiful text area. Click on the audit button. You will see this animation indicating the process is working. Once it's done, we are represented with a report which include audit report, metric scores, and suggestions for improvement. Clicking on these expands to give you detailed information. The audit report page contains a summary of the smart contract results. The metric scores feature a progress bar indicating the smart contract performance in various metrics. Suggestions for improvements shows how we could enhance our smart contracts. We are going to learn and build this from scratch. Stick around and let's code together. We will start by building and hosting our AuditAI CLI package on NPM. After that, we will build the website. The website was built with TypeScript, while the NPM package was built with JavaScript. This is because some of the packages we used in the NPM package did not have TypeScript types available. This is my Visual Studio Code interface. Let's start by creating a folder for our project. Click on File, select Open Folder, and create a new folder named Auditor. Within this folder, create another directory called auditor-CLI, which is going to contain the code for our NPM package. Before we start writing any code, let's discuss NPM. NPM is a node package manager and it's the world's largest software registry. If you have built a React app, Angular app, or any modern framework, there is a high chance you have used NPM before. NPM is great for allowing you to run and use packages either locally or globally. Let's launch our terminal and run the following. Currently, we are in the auditor directory. To navigate to the auditor-CLI directory, we use the command cd and type the name of the directory. In this case, auditor-CLI. And now we are in the auditor-CLI directory. Let's type npm init. This command initializes npm. It will ask you a series of prompts, but to skip them, you can use this command instead. npm init-y. Now we have it initialized. Next, we are going to install the following packages, starting with Inquirer. This package will be used to create a command line interface for our app or package. To install it, we run npm install Inquirer. That is done. Next, we will install OpenAI. This package will help us interact with ChatGPT 3 language model to audit our smart contracts. To install it, we run npm install OpenAI. And finally, Commander. So we will run npm install Commander, which will also help us with writing our command line interface application. With these packages installed, we are ready to start building our audit CLI package. Let's start by setting up our project structure. First, we will create a new file named index.js. This will be the main entry point for our CLI tool. So inside AuditAI.cli, we click on this icon here and create index.js. Next, let's create a folder named src. Inside this src folder, we will create a file called ai-prompt.js. This file will contain our logic for interacting with the OpenAI API. Finally, let's make sure we have a .getIgnore file to exclude unnecessary files from our Git repository. This is crucial for keeping our version control clean and efficient. Let's open the index.js file. First off, let's write this line of code. Hashtag, ! /user, bin, env, and then node. This is what we called the shebang line. It tells the system to use Node.js to run this script. It is crucial for making our script executable from the command line. Then we import this. Commander is a library for building command line interfaces. Think of this as the backbone of our CLI tool. Then we import inquirer. Inquirer is all about user prompt. It helps us ask questions and get input from users. And then we import analyze contracts. From source and AI prompt. This is our custom function to interact with the OpenAI to analyze smart contracts, which we are yet to create. We will also import the file system module. We will be using this to read the smart contract files. And then we import path. This will help us resolve file paths, super handy. Now let's move to the src directory and open the ai-prompt.js file. We will start by importing the OpenAI library. So const OpenAI require OpenAI. And then we create a function to analyze smart contracts using the OpenAI API. This function is going to accept two parameters, contract and API key. We are going to get both from the user as an input prompt. So we create the function constant analyze contract, which is going to be an async function. Then we have our two parameters, contract and API key. We are going to initialize the OpenAI client with the provided API key. So constant OpenAI, we initialize the OpenAI with the API key. This key coming from the argument. Once done with that, we are going to define the parameters for the OpenAI chat completion request. Let's start by creating the object for the parameters. Constant params, which is going to be a giant object. The first property is going to be the model, which we are going to use GPT 3.5 table. So model GPT 3.5 table. And then we create a message object that will be sent to the API. This message object is an array containing other objects. So we have messages, and then our array, and then our object. The first object we are going to create is going to be the role, which we are going to set it to user. Following the role, we are going to set the content of the message, which is popularly called the prompt. We will provide a very detailed description of how we want our model to analyze the smart contract and the result that we are expecting from the model. So we write content, and then we type in this prompt. Our role and goal is to be an AI smart contract auditor. Your job is to perform an audit on the given smart contract. And we have the $sign here, and we pass in the contract. Coming from this parameter here. So before we continue, let's add here is the smart contract. And to continue with our content, we write please provide the result in the following array format for easy front-end display. So what we want this modal to generate is an array of objects. So we have this giant array here, and we will have the objects breaking down into sections. So we have section, and this section is going to be the audit report, followed by the details. So we provide the details as such: a detailed audit report of the smart contract covering security, performance, and any other relevant aspects. So we have our first section done. We are going to create our second section. Our second section is going to be the metric scores. So we have section, and then metric scores with the following details. So for this, the details is also going to be an array of objects. So we have an array here, and the object that we want this AI model to return is going to have these metrics. So starting with the first metric, which is going to be security, followed by a score to be 0 to 10. Then we have our second matrix, which is going to be performance, and the score is going to range from 0 to 10 as well. Then we have our third matrix, which is going to be other key areas. So we have metrics, and then we have other key areas. With the same score range. Then we have this matrix as well. Of gas efficiency with the same score range from 0 to 10. And then we have code quality, which is also going to have a score range of 0 to 10. And finally, we have our last metric, which is going to be how well documented the smart contract is. Documentation with the same scale for score from 0 to 10. These are the metrics that I came up with. You can also add more metrics of your own to extend the capability of this AI smart contract auditor. And our final section is going to be suggestions for improvement. And we have the details to be suggestions for improving the smart contract in terms of security, performance, and any other identified weaknesses. And finally, we add thank you. This is optional. You can choose to ignore this, but I prefer to add thank you after every prompt, just to be a little bit kind of polite to the AI. We are done with our prompt. This is going to return exactly the format we specified it to, or instructed it to. So now let's make the request to the OpenAI chat completion endpoint. So we write const chat completion. We await for the chat. Await OpenAI chat completion. Then we pass in the params, the one we created above here, this one. So from here, we are going to pass the response to extract the audit result. Constant audit result equals json.pass. And then we have our chat completion dot choices message dot content. So this holds the response coming back from the model, and we are going to pass it to be able to get or extract the response from the audit result. We are going to log the audit report details once we have a successful response. So we console log, we have the title here, audit report. The audit results are going to be an array. So we will loop through the array and find where the section name is audit report and log the respective details. Checking the content here, we have this giant array of objects coming as a response. We loop through this entire array and check the section where we have the section name to be audit report. And we do same for the metric scores and also do same for the suggestion for improvement. So we have console.log audit result.find, and inside the find we will have this R, which is going to be the result, and return where r.section is equal to audit report. And we want to access the details property in the audit report object. So we add .details, and this is going to loop through the audit results and look for the section. This section here where we have the section name to be this exact name, audit report. So that is what we have here. And once we have a successful return, we want to access the details property. This one over here, this details property over here. So we are done with logging the audit report to the console. Now let's use the same format to log the metrics. So we have console.log, break this into a new line, and we add the metrics scores. Now remember, the metric scores is an array of objects. So what we are going to do here is we are going to loop through the audit results and find the section where the section name is equal to metric scores. This exact one here, so metric scores. To be sure, we can copy this exact section name and paste it over here. Right, and access the details property. Remember, the details property from the metric score is also an array. So to get the metric scores, we have to loop through the details array as well to get the metric scores. So we have dot for each. So what we are seeing here is for each of the metrics, we want to log this. So we will have this over here, metric.score out of 10, because we have the metric score scale from 0 to 10. So looping through the details of the metric score, we want to log the metric scores. And finally, we will write similar code to what we did for the audit report to log the suggestions for improvement. So log suggestions for improvement, and then we can copy this exact line here, paste it over here, and change this to instead of looking for the audit report we are going to look for suggestions for improvement. So we can move back to the content and copy this exact section name here and paste it over here. So now we have the audit report, metric scores, and suggestions for improvement. And finally, we export the analyze contract function for the use in other modules. So we have module.export equals analyze contract. So we save this and move back to index.js. We are going to create a new instance of command from commander. This is where we start defining our command line commands. So constant program equals new commander, new command. Now we will set up some basic information about our command line too. So we have program.name. This is going to be the name of our CLI tool. So we have AuditAI dot description, and we have the description name to be a CLI tool to audit smart contracts using OpenAI. And finally, we add the version to be 1.0.0. This is handy for version control and updates. Next, we need to get the OpenAI key from the user. We will do that by using inquirer. So we have constant get API key equals async. This is going to be an async function. And within this function, we will create a new object for the prompt. So const API key await inquirer dot prompt. Inside this inquirer prompt array, we are going to have an object. So the first property is going to be a type, and the type is going to be an input. The name is going to be API key. The message to display to the console is going to be enter your API key. So we want to get the API key from the user to run the AI prompt command for analyzing the smart contract. And then we have a validate function which will also have the input, and then we check the input length. If it's greater than 0, anything else, we are going to print this to the console. API key is required. This is a simple validation to ensure the user doesn't leave this blank. Then we return API key, right? So next, we are going to define the check command. This check command is going to run or call the AI prompt provided with an argument of a test file or a solidity file to run the analysis or the audit. So we have program dot command. So we have check which will have a file attached to it. So we have description, analyze, a smart contract. We have dot section, async file. We are going to read from a file, so we will need this async function here, and then we run the try catch block, and inside the try catch block we are going to get the OpenAI key from the user. So const API key equals await get API key, this very function that we just created. And then we have a const to hold the contract path, which we are going to use the path module and use the resolve process.cwd and then a file. So this is going to resolve the full path of the provided file, and then we console.log checking file at path, and then we have this over here to contain the contract path. All right. So we are going to check if a file exists at a given path. So we have if not fs.exit sync, we pass in the contract path, and then we are going to log an error. So console.error file not found. So this exit sync function checks if a file exists at a path, and this is going to return true or false. So if there is a file, this is going to return true, and we have this exclamation here to negate whatever we are getting from this function. So not true is going to mean there is a file existing in this path, and we are going to skip this check. And if we have a false coming from this function, we are negating this with the exclamation mark here. So this is going to be true, meaning there is no file existing at this path. And then we throw this error. So once we have this error, we are going to exit this process by running process exit and pass in 1. We check if the file path is a directory instead of a file. So we do that by running fs.sync start sync, which accepts the contract path as a parameter, and we check its directory. This is a property that checks if the file is a directory. And if the file is not a directory, we are going to log an error. So console.error. So we have path is a directory, not a file, and then we pass in the contract path. We are going to exit as well if there is an error to exit the whole program. So now if all these are checked and the file that we provided exists and also not a directory, we are going to read the content of the smart contract file. So constant contracts equals fx.read file sync. This function accepts 2 parameters, the file path and then the encoding. So we have contract path, which is going to be the file path that we provide, and then the encoding is going to be UTF-8. We are going to analyze the contract using the provided API key. So we have await, analyze contract, and then we have the contract as an argument and also the API key. Remember, this is the function we created at the ai-prompt.js. So we have that over here. Contract and API key are the parameters for this function. So we have provided everything the analyze contract needs to audit a smart contract. And if there is an error, we are going to log console.error. We are going to log error during analysis. And then we have the error.message for debugging purposes. Once we have all these in place, we are going to pass the command line argument and execute the corresponding actions. So program.pass process.arguments. So let's save this. Now we are done writing all the code for our package to work fine. Let's open the get.ignore file and add the following line. So we are going to add node modules. This is to ensure that the node modules folder or directory is not pushed to the repository, reducing the size of our package. Before testing locally and publishing it to NPM, let's make the following modification to package.json file. So we have the name correct, auditra-cli, the version is also correct, and let's modify this description by writing a CLI tool to audit smart contracts using OpenAI. And then we have the main file to be index.js, which is correct. And then we are going to add this bean property to the package.json file. So this bean is going to have a name as AuditAI, and then we are going to reference to the index.js file. All right. And we have our script here. So to start this whole program, after a user has installed our package, we have to run this command node index.js to kickstart everything. So we have start node index.js over here. And we are going to add keywords to help users find the package in the NPM registry. So the first keyword that we are going to recruit is CLI, and then we have audit, and we have smart contracts, and finally we have OpenAI. There is no limit to keywords that you can add. You can add as much as keywords you like. And the author for this package, you can write your name here. So I'll write Albert Mentz here. And the license under which this package is distributed. So we are going to distribute this package under MIT. So I think everything is good in the package.json file, and we can save this, save the get-ignore as well, and then test out the package locally. There are two ways of testing your new NPM tool locally. The easiest way is by using npx command with the local path of your NPM package. To find the path to our package, we can use the command pwd in our package directory. Then from any other directory, we can run this command. So we type pwd, and this gives us the directory to our package. We copy this and then we type npx and paste in what we just copied. Hit enter. So it says we have an error which says section is not a function. So let's move back to the index.js file at line 35. Minimize this terminal and there we have it. So we don't have anything like section as it stated it clearly over here. So this is supposed to be an action. So I made a typo mistake here. So change the section to action. And then let's run this again. So let's save it and run it again. And there we go. We have our package running. So we can test it out by using the command AuditAI check. So this gives us a brief description of what our package is and shows us the command available. So we have check file here to analyze a smart contract. Let's provide a smart contract file and test this out. So I have this test.solidity file here, which I will paste over here for testing purposes. So we can run AuditAI check and then the name of the file, test.sol. Run enter. It asks us for our OpenAI API key. You can get your OpenAI key from platform.openai.com/API keys. When you visit this dashboard, you can create a new secret key. So test one here and then I will click on create secret. Once you have your secret key, you can copy it, move back to the terminal and paste it over here. So we have our key pasted and it's checking the file at path and voila, it generated our report for us beautifully. So we have the smart contract has basic token functionalities. This is the report, the metrics calls and suggestions for improvement. We did it by using the AuditAI check command that we created from scratch by ourselves. Now let's push this to NPM so others can install it globally. First of all, let's sign up on the platform NPM and get our account. I have already signed in, so I am going to log out and then start everything all over again. So click on sign up and provide your username. So it could be any username at all. So I'll write Albert Ment and provide an email address and a password. You check this check mark to agree to the alliance's agreement and privacy policy, and then verify that you are a human here before you can create your account. So click on create an account and a one-time password is going to be sent to your email. Once you have that, copy it and paste it over here and log in. So now let's head back to the terminal. Inside our terminal, let's run this command npm login. Once we type npm login, it says press enter to open the browser. So we are going to press enter. And this takes us to this login page, which says we should check our email for a one-time password. So I'm going to check my email and copy the one-time password and paste it over here. Click on login and it says authentication successfully. So we can close this tab and then head back to our command line. Back in the command line, we are supposed to see logged in over here and the link to the website. If you don't see this, it means you haven't logged in successfully. So once we have logged in, we run this command npm publish to push our code to npm. And there you have it. Your package should be available at npmjs.com. So when we move back to our account, we can click on the packages menu, and there we go. We can see the command that we just published. Now this is available globally and anyone can install it provided they enter their API key and a correct Solidity file path. They can audit their smart contracts with your package. You can update and republish the package using the steps that we've discussed in this video. Make sure you update the version number as NPM won't let you publish with the same number. This package can now be installed and used globally. Moving on to the main website, when we check the finished project, we can see this is a single website and a very simple application. Let's break down the components of this website and start building it. We have a header here which says Auditor, AI Smart Contract Auditor, and a paragraph beneath it. Oh, and to mention, we have this wavy animated background here as well. In the middle here, we have this huge text area, which is technically a text editor as well, that accepts smart contracts and analyzes them. Let's copy this smart contract code here. Clicking on this audit button communicates to the OpenAI and returns a result to us in a modal form. So in summary, we have a header, a paragraph, a text area, these buttons, and also a modal. With that said, let's start building it right away. On the Next.js official documentation website, we can learn to install Next.js and Tailwind CSS. Let's scroll down, copy this command and run it in our terminal. Before running this command, make sure you are back at the root directory auditor and not in the folder auditor.cli. So we are going to type cd _ and hit enter. So this takes us back to the auditor directory, the main directory. So we paste it here and press enter. We are being asked what's your project name, so we are going to type here auditor. And would you like to use TypeScript? Yes, of course. Would you like to use ESLint? No. Would you like to use Tailwind CSS? Yes. So yes is going to be the answer for the rest. Now we wait for some few minutes to get this installed. Now we have everything installed, so we are going to cd into auditor, and then we start modifying our code. So now let's open the auditor folder and inspect the source folder. So we have our app inside the source directory. We have our public and git ignore with all these packages and files that comes with installing Next.js. So we are going to start with the layout page. Now this layout page is used to define the HTML and body tags and other globally shared UI. So we have metadata imported here. We are going to use the font Poppins for this project. So let's import Poppins. We change enter to Poppins from Next font Google, and then we change the variable names, make this into Poppins. So now let's configure it to use the Poppin test. So we clean everything here, we write weight, and then we have 400 and 700. So 400 and 700. Also, we are going to have the subsets to be Latin. right? This object over here is going to contain the metadata of our application. So we are going to change the title from Create Next App into AuditAI. And then the description is also going to be AI Smart Contracts. Auditor. Right, so everything here is pretty much going to remain the same, and we are going to change this from inter to poppins, the variable we created over here. So this is going to be poppins. So once we have this configured, let's jump into the page.typescript file, this one over here, and start building the whole system. So to test this out, let's replace everything here with a paragraph that says homepage. So starting from the main page, clean everything, type a paragraph here that says homepage. We save this and then we run the command yarn run dev or npm run dev. So we have our project starting on localhost port 3000. So let's open our browser and then type localhost port 3000. And we have homepage written over here, this very paragraph that we typed. Now this page is going to contain all the code for the homepage and most of the components. For example, the header component, the contract input, and the results modal. We are going to build the components and import them over here. So starting with the header component, we are going to create a component directory to hold our UI elements and components. This makes the code easier to understand and read because the goal is to simplify code and reduce complexities. So let's create the component folder. And then create the UI folder. Inside this UI folder, we are going to create this file called wavy background. That is going to hold the wavy background that we see on the home page. Inside this wavy background page, let's move to this website called Auditing. The link will be shared in the description as usual. Auditing is a Next.js Tailwind component UI library that helps you build great looking websites within minutes. Inside this search component button, we will search for wavy background and click on it. This shows us how to install and use the wavy background component in seconds. So let's scroll down, copy everything here and install them. So back to the terminal, we are going to run yarn add and paste the following packages. The one we just copied from the Auditing UI website. Whilst we wait for this to install, we will move back to the Auditing website. We will create a utility folder in a root directory and add the file cn.typescript or whatever name that you want to give it. So inside this root folder, we create a folder called utils. And inside the utils, we are going to create cn.typescript and copy everything here, paste it inside the cn.typescript page. Save it. We have this red wavy background on Tailwind Merge and CLXX because they are still installing. And once they are done, this wavy background is going to go away. So back to the Auditing UI website, we are going to expand this and copy everything here. Back to our Visual Studio Code and paste it inside the wavy background component. we still have these red wavy lines underlining some of these components because we are still installing them. So once they are done, these are going to disappear as I mentioned earlier. Based on your internet speed, this is supposed to be installed in few seconds. Alright, so we have the packages installed now. So there is nothing like lib/utils in the project. So we are going to change this from lib to something like utils-cn. So we are going to change this to reference from this file that we created over here. To get rid of everything, type cn, and then we have it. We now have cn imported from our utils directory. And just like that, we just created the wavy background component. Remember, we are yet to create the header component, right? Let's create it. So inside the components directory, we will create a header.ts file. So inside this, we create a new file called header.tsx. Over here, we are going to import the wavy background component. So we type wavy background, and then export the header component. And return the wavy component. So we will use the wavy component over here and these classes. So we have wavy component background, class names, mass width of 4xl, mx auto, and padding bottom of 20. So what these classes are doing is to set the mass width to 4xl and a padding bottom of 20, and center everything, put everything into the center. Let's create a paragraph for our test over here. Auditor, AI, smart contract, auditor. We create a class name, text 4xl. On a small screen, we want to have the same text 4xl, and the text is supposed to be white. So we give it a text white property and bolding the font with the font bold property. So we add these two classes, interval, and then text center. And create another paragraph for the description. Leverage the power of AI to audit your smart contract. And we provide them with these classes. So we have a text base, we have MD, text 2XL. On a medium screen, we want the text size to have this size, 2XL, and a margin top of 4, text white as well, font is going to be normal, and then we add these two classes. We center the text. And we are done with the header component. Now let's move to the page file and import the header component. So we save it and then move to the page file. Before we import the header component, we are going to type use client. We are typing this because we are going to use the use state hook, and then we import the use state from React. So we are going to get rid of this image, and then we import the header component. So we are going to get rid of the paragraph and return this main component. So the main component is going to have these classes. So class name, everything is going to be a flex. Remember, this class is going to be applied to the whole page, and we want the minimum height to fit the screen, and we give it a width of full, a flex of column, item center, we place everything in the center, justify between, and then we give it a padding of 24. So once we have this main component created, we are going to call the header over here. Let's give it a save and then move back to localhost port 3000 to test it out. And there we go, we have our text bolding here and our paragraph here. Alright, so next we are going to create the contract input and then the result modal. So back to our component directory, we are going to create a new file called contract input. Inside this contract input page, we will import the editor component from React Simple Code Editor. When we check the complete project, we have this text area here, which is a code editor with this syntax highlighting feature. So to do this, we are going to install React Simple Code Editor. So we are going to install React Simple Code Editor by running this command: npm install React Simple Code Editor. So we are going to start by importing React. So import React from React, and then we are going to import the editor as well from the React Simple Code Editor. As I explained earlier, the editor component will be used to create the code editor that will give us the syntax highlighting and other features. We will import Prism.js for syntax highlighting because the React Simple Code Editor need it for syntax highlighting, so we have to install that as well. So we are going to run npm install Prism.js and import that over here. From Prism.js. So we are going to have this red wavy line here because we are missing the types for Prism.js. So to do that, we are going to copy this command here, npm install save-dev types Prism.js. So copy everything, paste it over here. So we are unable to copy this view problem and then copy it over here. So once we paste it, it's going to get the types installed for us. Alright, so the red wavy line is gone because we have installed the types. We are also going to import these two Prism components. The first one being the Prism Solidity and the second one being the Prism CSX. We will also import some icons from Tabular Icons React. To install Tabular Icon React, this is the official website. You can click on the documentation website and learn how to install it. So we are going to run npm install at tabular/icons-react. this is going to get the tabular icons installed for us. So once this is done installing, we are going to import these two icons for the contract input component. So from the tabular icons React, we are going to import icon checklist, and then we are also going to import icon paperclip. When we check the finished website, we can see those icons here, paperclip and then the checklist icon. So once we have this imported, we are going to create a TypeScript interface for this component. So we start by using the keyword interface, and then we type custom code editor props. So this is going to be the TypeScript types for our component. It have a contract, which is going to be the contract pasted in the text area, which is a string. And then we have a set contract function, which is going to be a React dispatch type. We pass in React.setStateAction, which is going to accept a string. And finally, we are going to have an analyze function, which is going to be a promise. It's going to be an async function. So we are going to use the promise, and then we pass in void. So let's spell the analyze well. Analyze. All right. And then we have our custom code editor props created. So we are going to use Prism to highlight the code. So we are going to type const highlight with Prism, and this is going to we are going to pass a code here, which is going to be a string, and then we are going to return Prism dot highlight with the code that is coming in as an argument, the Prism dot language dot solidity. And then the last argument is solidity. So we are also going to create a utility function to check if the contract contains the required SPDC license and pragma directives. So for every solidity code, we have to start with SPDX license identifier and also pragma. So we are going to check if our code contains any of these to make sure the code we are auditing is truly a solidity code. So const is valid solidity. This is going to be the function to do the check-ins for us. Contract, and going to pass in code as an argument. And what this function is going to do is to use regular expressions to match or check for the keywords and identifiers. So we create a constant for the SPDX regex, right? So we are going to copy the regex over here and paste it. We are also going to create a constant for the pragma keyword identifier. So we copy that regex code as well, regular expression code, and then we are going to return spdx regex.tests code and pragma regex.txt code. This is going to check if the code coming in is indeed a Solidity file or code. So now we will create the custom code editor component by typing the following: constant custom code editor, which is a React component. So we are going to have react.fc functional component, and we are going to pass in this TypeScript types that we just created, the custom code editor props. We pass that in, and then we pass in the required argument that we need: the contract, the set contract, and analyze. So we are going to create a function here called the handle analyze, and this is going to analyze the Solidity code for us. So we have if not is valid Solidity contract with the argument of contract that we are getting from here. What do? We are going to create an alert, and the alert is going to be invalid Solidity contract, and then we are going to return. So once we have this check in place, we can then analyze the code and generate the audit response. So we are going to call the analyze function here. We are yet to create this analyze function. So we are going to return this div here and give it a class name of relative large. On a large screen, we want the width to cover 4 out of 6, and then we have a width of full and MX auto. So what this is doing here is to set the relative position and the width of this div. So now we are going to create a div with these classes. The div is going to contain the code editor div. So we have this div here with a class name. We give it a border outline of none. The border radius is going to be 2. The border is going to be gray 300, and then we are going to round the whole div. So rounded of 2xl to round the whole div, and then a padding of 6. We give it a background of neutral 900, and then alright, so we have a text of neutral 200 and a border of neutral 700. So let's get rid of this and then use the border neutral 700. Alright, so we are also going to create a style component for this div. So the style component is going to have the height for the whole text area, which we want it to be 450 pixels, and then we have the overflow y, which is going to be auto. Inside this div, we can now import the code editor from the React simple code editor. It has similar properties as a text area. So we have to pass in the value, which will be any contract that will be posted in the editor coming from the caller of this component. So we have editor, and then we give it a value of contract, value change, which we want to set the code to set contract and then pass in the code. We will be using the highlight with Prisma functions from here. So we have highlight, which is also going to be the code, and then highlight with Prisma. So we're having this set contract function, which we are going to pass in as a prompt from the page component, right? So we give this code editor a padding of 15, and then a text area ID of code editor. We also give it a text area class name. So as I mentioned, this is having a similar properties to text area. So I am just going to set the outline to none because the default text editor comes with an outline of blue and we don't want that. So we create a style finally. And the style is going to have a font family. So we have Fera, Mono, and then we have monospace. So if you have a font name that includes a space, you put them in a quotation mark like this. And for a font name that is just one word, you just type in this way as well. So let's create a couple of styles like a font size and give it 17. We also want to create a minimum height of 100%. We want the background to be transparent. And the color, we are going to inherit the color. Now let's import this at the page.tsx and then save this and run it into our browser at port 3000. So we save it and then back to the page component, we import the contract input. What is the name of the export? Before we can import it at the page.tsx, we have to export it. So we are going to export default custom code editor. And then we can move back to the page and import custom code editor. So this is going to accept a couple of params. So we have the analyze, the contract, and then the set contracts. So we are going to create those states and then pass them inside the custom code editor to be able to show it up at the localhost port 3000. So we create a state and we are going to name it contract, which is going to be an empty string, and then we create a state for the results. Which is also going to be now, and then a state for a modal. So we create a state for opening and closing the modal. So it's modal open and set is modal open, and the default value is going to be false. And then we finally create the loading state, which is going to tell when the modal should open or close. So we are going to have a use state, a constant of loading, and set loading, which is going to be false by default, right? It's going to be false by default. And to be able to display or render this at localhost port 3000, we haven't created the analyze function yet. So we are going to create a boilerplate code for the analyze function and do the implementation later on. So we create a boilerplate code analyze, which is going to be an async function and not to do anything within this function. Alright, so now we have all the parameters needed to run this costume code editor. So we pass the analyze, which is going to be analyze, and then we have the contract, which is also going to be contract, and finally we have set contract, which is going to be set contract. So now we can see we don't have any error showing over here. So let's save this and head back to localhost port 3000 and test it out. So, and there we go, we have the test area or the code editor rendered perfectly. So we can start adding these buttons at the bottom here, like the one we have in the production one. Alright, so let's head back to contract input and then create this div. So we are going to create this div, which is going to hold the two icons. So we give the main div this class name of absolute, because we want to display it at the bottom of the code editor. So we give it a bottom of px, and then we have insect x. We have insect s dash px. We give it a padding of 2, a rounded in the bottom. We want md. We want the background to be neutral, 900. That is for the main div to contain the icons at the bottom side of the code editor. And then we are going to create a div. We give it a class name, flex justify between. Those two icons are having a justify of between. So we can see the one on the far left and then the one on the far right. So we have item center and the padding bottom of 3. So now we create the main div to contain the icons themselves. So we create the div, and the div is having a button and an icon. So the first thing we're going to do is to give this a class name flex item center, and then we create a button. We create a button with type button, and we give it a class name inline flex string 0 justify center item center size 8 rounded large test gray 500. And then when a user hover on this, we want to have a test of blue 600, and we want the focus. When we focus on it, we want the z index to be 10 and focus outline none. So when we click on this button, we don't want to see any outline around the icon, and the focus is going to have a ring of 2. And then we add these classes. Focus ring blue 500, and then we want the text to be neutral 500, and yeah, that will be it for the classes for this icon. So the icon is going to be an icon paperclip. So once we have this created, we are going to copy this div here. Okay, cannot find the name div, so we need to close this div. Okay, yeah, so let's copy this, paste it here, and then we change a couple of classes. So we have flex item center. We want the cursor turn into a pointer when the user hover on this button, and we want a gap x. Okay, so before I add the rest of the classes, let me save this and then move back to the website and check what we have now. So let's import the icon checklist first before moving back to the website. So save this, and then this is what we have on the website, right? So when we check the finished website, this is a button. We need to give it that button. So what we are going to do here is to first of all, let's give this icon a size of 20. Looks big for me. And then we create the test audit. The test audit. So this is going to have a background of blue. 600. We save that, and there we have it. We give it a text of white. Then we get rid of this over thing over here, this over thing here, and then save it. So we are going to change this inline to flex and flex row. We save that, and we are also going to give the button a rounded or full to create that pale effect. So we get rid of the large, and then we use the full. So we add space x2, and then px padding at the x-axis and py of 1.5. So we have gap x to be 1. So we have the button rendered beautifully. When I paste this smart contract here, we also have the syntax highlighting in place. So meaning the contract input component is done. So now we can create the analyze function and then create the modal and combine everything together to complete the application. So let's save this and move back to the utils folder and create this file here, ai-prompt.js. So we are going to rename this to TypeScript.tx. This ai-prompt.TypeScript page is going to look very similar to what we created for the command line interface tool. This one over here. This one over here. So if you skipped this part, kindly go back and watch it before coming back to the audit ai-prompt.TypeScript, because we are going to copy most of the information over there to this side. So we are going to import OpenAI from OpenAI. Before we continue, let's install OpenAI. So NPM install OpenAI. And then we are going to create a constant to hold our API key. So process.env.next public API key. So let's create a .env file inside the root directory of our AuditAI folder, and then create this environment variable which is going to hold the API key from OpenAI. So we are going to create a constant OpenAI equals new OpenAI. To initialize our OpenAI, we pass in the key, API key coming from process.env.next public API key, and we pass in dangerously allow browser parameter to be true. So this the purpose for this is to allow the browser to run this. So we are going to export the analyze contract. So this is going to accept a contract which is going to be a string. It is going to accept a set results which is going to be any type, and a set loading which is also going to be any type. So first thing first, anytime the user click on the analyze button and we call this component, we want to set the loading state to true to show the user a spinner indicating there is a process running at the background. So we are going to set loading to true. So this set loading is going to be passed in from the page.tsx file. So once we have the set loading in place, we can now run the actual process to get the smart contract, send it over to the OpenAI API, and give us a response. So we create a constant for chat completion. Await, and then the OpenAI that we initiated, we have chat.completions.create. So inside here we are going to have the message property, which is going to be an array of objects. So we have the messages, and then we have this array here of objects. So the first parameter is going to be the role, which is going to be the user. As I mentioned, I have explained everything into details when we created the AuditAI CLI tool. So if you want to understand the prompt and everything going on here, I recommend you go back to watch that part. So we are going to have the content, which is basically the same as what we have in the AI prompt for the AuditAI CLI. So you copy everything in the content, move back to our AI prompt, and paste it here. And the final component that we need is the modal. So as in the previous one, we are going to use GPT 3.5 table. And the type for this is going to be as any. So over here, we are going to create a constant called audit results. We are going to pass the results using the JSON pass, and we pass in the chart completion choices dot message dot content. So this is the response coming back from the OpenAI API. And then we set the result to audit results. So once everything is done, we want to set the loading to false to tell the user that the process is done, and we have something for them. So set loading is going to be false. Alright, so let's save this, and then we are going to create the final piece for this application, which is going to be the results modal. So we create this file inside the component called results-modal.txt. Before we write the code for the modal, let's go back to the complete project and look at the modal's functionality. So when we click on audit, we have the spinner here with analyzing smart contracts. And once it is done, this modal shows the audit report, the metric scores, and suggestions for improvement. So the audit report contains the report, and the metric scores have this circular progress bar to show the performance of using these metrics out of 10 from a scale of 0 to 10. So, and then we have suggestions for improvement, which we have over here. Initially, I wanted to implement a fix function that is going to replace the smart contract code with the physics, but I will leave that for you guys to try it on your own as an improvement for this project. So we have the results in the modal, and we have this icon here, which we can toggle to display the various sections into details. So we are going to create this. Back to the result modal, we are going to import React from React, and then we are going to call the useState. So we are going to use a dialog for the modal, and the package that we are using is called headless UI. So when we move back and check the headless UI's website, this is the home page. So we have React and Vue here. When we scroll down a little bit, we have this dialog over here. So when we click on this dialog, it shows us how to install this headless UI and use its dialog. So we copy this code, run it in our terminal. So once it is done, we can import the dialog. Alright, so the package is installed. So we are going to import headless UI -react/react and import the dialog. So once we have the dialog, we are going to import a couple of icons from tabular icons React. So we have import from tabular icons React, and at this import we have the icon checklist, we have the icon circle check, icon gauge, we have the icon chevron up, we have the icon chevron down, and then we have icon tool. So these are the icons that we would import from tabular icons React. After generating a report, we are going to use a circular progress bar. So we are going to install React circular progress bar. To do that, we run the command npm install React circular progress bar. Alright, seems I typed the name wrong, so paste it here. And then we have that installed. So we are going to import the circular progress bar, and then the build styles from React circular progress bar. React Alright, seems that one didn't get installed, so let's run the command again. npm install React circular progress bar. Okay, alright, so let's move back to our browser and search React circular progress bar and copy this exact name over here. Let's copy this installation code here, move back and paste it. Alright, so we have it. So it's got installed this time around. And import this class. So React circular progress bar lists, and then styles.css. So we are going to create an interface for this component. So we start by typing the keyword interface result modal props, and then we pass is open, which is going to be a boolean, and then we have close modal, which is going to be a function. We have loading, which is going to be a boolean, the result any, and we are supposed to have fix issues button here, but as I said, try that on your own as a hands-on feature to add to this project. So we are going to have these props for now, and create a constant for the modal. So we have result modal, a React functional component, and the props is going to be result modal props. And we have is open, close modal, loading, and results. So we are going to return the dialog. So we return the dialog. The dialog is having this prompt, so open, which is going to be dependent on the is open state, and we have on close, which is going to be dependent on the close modal function, and give this a class name with the following class properties. So we have a first size or a first position, z index of 10, insert 0, overflow on the y-axis should be auto. So once we have that, we are going to create a div, a parent div, which is going to have these properties. So we want a flex, item center, justify center. The minimum height for this is supposed to be the screen, px4, and a text should be center. And create another div within the main div, right? So we are going to create a class name for that, which is also going to be first, insert 0, and we are going to give it a background of black and opacity of 50, and finally we add this props. So we have area hidden to be true. So this is going to be the backdrop for our modal. So inside here we are going to have a condition. We are going to have a loading state, which is going to show the spinner that tells the user the contract is being analyzed. And then once this is done, the loading state is going to go away and display the results from the OpenAI API. So we already have the loading state. We do the check-ins by typing loading. So this is more of like, if loading, do this, else I want you to do this. So if we are loading, or if the application is sending the request to the API, what do? We show the user a spinner telling them the application is processing their input. So we create a div for that. So we have a div, and a class name. We give it a background of neutral 900 and rounded to XL. We want to run this div, all right. And the overflow hidden, we have a shadow. We apply a little bit of shadow to it, XL, and then we add transform, transition all. So there is going to be a little bit animation once this modal pops out. So transform, and then we have mass width LG large. The width is supposed to be full, and then P8 space Y of 8. Right. So we have this div created. Now what we are left to do is to show the spinner, and the spinner is an SVG icon. So what I'm going to do is to copy that SVG icon here to display the spinner when the request is being sent to the API. So we have a div that contains the SVG. So we have flex py14 and flex of call, item center, and then we are going to paste the SVG over here. So let's return just empty div here. All right, so we have our SVG pasted inside this div, and then remember the loading state don't only contain the SVG but also a test to indicate that the contract is processing. So we have a paragraph here that says analyzing smart contracts, and then we provide them with these class properties. So margin top 4, tests should be large, the test should be gray, 700, 300 instead, and we can save this. So to test this, we have to export the results modal. So we are going to type export default results modal, and back to our page, we are going to import the modal. So what was the name of the modal? Results modal. So we are going to import the results modal. So which prompts do we have? So we have close modal, and we also have is open, and we have results and loading. So the is open is going to have the is open modal open, and the results, it's also going to be the results. So we have the results over here. So for the close modal, we are going to have this. So we are going to have set is modal open to false, right? And the loading is going to be this loading. So back to the results modal, we have results and results. So all right, everything is working perfectly fine. So we can save this, and to test this out, we have to click on the analyze button. We have to click on the analyze button. So this analyze button is going to set the loading to true before it performs the analyze contract function from the utils AI prompt, this very function. So we can call that function which accepts a contract, accept a set result, and set loading. So let's comment this line out to test the modal. Save it, save the results modal, back to localhost port 3000, click on audit, and nothing happens. This means we are not triggering the analyze function when this button is clicked. So back to the contact input, we have to have an on click here and pass in the handle analyze, this function, handle analyze, this very one. So we save that and head back to localhost port 3000, click on audit, refresh the page, click on audit, invalid solidity contract. So we copy this contract, paste it here, and click on audit. So the audit function is still not firing. So what could be the reason? Analyze, we have analyze function here. So let's go back to the page.txx and check what we are calling here. So we have analyze to set loading to true. So let's write console.log here to see if we are getting something when we call the function. So log, so calling analyze function. Save that and right click on the window, click on inspect to show the console. When we click on audit, it says calling analyze function, meaning we are getting something from this analyze function over here. So let's check inside the result modal and see what we are getting from the loading state when we click on that analyze button. So we can log loading here and then back to the website, we refresh it, paste a smart contract, so copy this, paste this here, click on audit, and it says true. So we have this loading state rendering properly, or we are getting the loading state from the page.tsx file from here. And if loading is true, this is supposed to display everything that we have over here. Alright, so let's hard code this part, change this from is open to true, and see if we'll be able to see the dialog. And there we go, we have the dialog being shown over here. So what could be the problem? So I think the problem is coming from the is open. So we have to move back to the page and then check this side. It's modal open. Right, so to test just the modal out, we have to add this state to it. So set is modal open to true, and when we save this, refresh the page, and click audit. So there we have it, we have the modal spinning. So I think we have to increase the z index of this. We have to increase the z index. So let's give this a z index of 50, and there we have it. So the modal has popped out of the backdrop. Initially it was behind the backdrop. Alright, so this is what we wanted to test. So we can close the console for now and also comment this out. Refresh the page and everything is gone. Alright, so let's get back to the modal, the result modal, and then continue to build the rest of the component. Alright, so to continue on, or once the API is done processing the input and returned a result, this loading is going to turn into false, and then the else clause is going to run. So in this else clause, what we want is to display the actual audit result, the metrics, and then the suggestion for performance improvement, right? So once the API is done processing and returned a result, we want to check if there is a result, and we want to render whatever comes after this if and only if there is a result. So that is what this double ampersand means. So we create a div. So the div is basically going to be the same as this parent div here for the loading state. So I'll copy that, paste it, and then close the div. So we are going to make a little bit of modifications. So the shadow and the background is going to remain the same. The mask width is going to change from large to 3 extra large. And I think everything is going to be the same basically. So we are going to create a div to hold the audit result. So we have a div with a class name space y of 8, and then we have another div that is going to have a class name of flex justify between item center to contain the audit result and also the chevron icon, the up, and then the chevron icon, the expand and collapse icon. So we are going to have h2 to display the title audit results, and we create a class name for a test 3XL, font bold and text gray 500. Let's make this 900 to be visible, and then 900 is going to make it dark actually, so 100. So we have our title created, and next we are going to create this div, right, to hold the audit report itself. So that is going to have a class name of test left, and h3 we give it these class names: test extra large space x2 when hovered upon the cursor to be a pointer, flex item center justify between a margin bottom for test gray 200. And then we add an on-click button, because when the user clicks, when we check this one over here, anytime the user clicks on this header, it shows the details. So when I click on audit report, it shows this details. When I click on metric scores, it shows that as well. So we are going to have an on click to the function is going to be toggle sections, and then we pass in the name audit report. So once we are here, let's move up and create the toggle section function. Get rid of the console.log, and we first create a state for the expanded section, and we have this state is going to be a string, so we have the type of string, and now and then we create the function to toggle section. So it's going to accept the section name, which is going to be a string, and then we are going to set expanded section is going to have the previous section as an argument, and we are going to check the previous section is equal to the section that we are passing in. If that is the case, we are going to return null, else we are going to return section. So what this is basically doing is to collapse all the sections once we have one opened. So we have metrics calls. Once I click on it, the rest are going to collapse. So basically just to open one section at a time and not two or more. So we have that in place now. We can move ahead and build the rest of the sections. So inside the header, we are going to have this div with the class name flex item center and space x2, and then we have the icon checklist with the size of 24 and the span to contain the test name of audit report. We save that, and there's one more piece before we move to the other component or section. So we are going to check the expanded section, and if the expanded section name is audit report, we want to show the icon chevron up, which is going to have a size of 24, or else we want to show the icon chevron down. We give it the same size of 24. So we have that in place. So this is basically going to be the same as so this is for audit report, and when we check the suggestions for improvement, they are basically going to be the same. So this is what I will do. I will copy this part and paste it, change a couple of things. So from the name, we are going to replace it with suggestions for improvement, and we are going to have the same icon chevron up and down, but the expanded section is going to change to suggestions. Right? Okay. So there is one more piece. So now we have the title, and to display the button, whether we have opened or collapsed this section, what is left is the actual content coming in from AI. So we are going to check the expanded section. If it is equal to audit report, we want to display the details coming from the AI. So we render a paragraph, give it a class name of test base, and we have a test gray 300, right? Remember, when we were creating the command line interface for our application, I said the result coming in from the API is an array because that is what we designed or instructed the AI to give us. So the results that will be coming after the input has been processed is going to be an array. So we are going to have the result that is going to come from the page.tsx, the results here coming from the set results that the AI is going to return, right? This function is going to return. So results dot find, this is very similar to what we did when building the NPM package. So we are going to find R, which is going to be the result, right? And we are going to check wherever the R dot section is equal to audit report, because this is how we design the prompt. So the prompt is going to return an array of objects and each section is having its own name. So we are going to copy the audit report name to be sure that what we are typing is correct and paste it over here. And once we are done getting the section, we want to display the details. So dot details, the one we have over here. So with just this, we are being able to get the results from the database, iterate over them, and display the results for the section. So we copied the same thing back to this component and paste this over here. We are going to change this to suggestions. And the section name for the suggestions is suggestions for improvement. So we are going to paste that over here, clean everything here and paste it. So we have these two in place, suggestions for improvement and audit report. So what we are going to do now is to work on the metric score. So let's collapse this div and then work on the metric score. So the metric score is going to have the same div, with the difference being the sections that we are going to render at the modal. So we paste that over here, and the toggle section here is supposed to be metric score. Metric scores. That reminds me, we have to change this one to suggestions since we copied it. All right, so we have the metric score, and we are going to change this to metric scores and change the icon to icon gauge, and then we change the icon for suggestions to icon check, circle check. So back to the metric score. The expanded section is also going to be metric scores, and then we do same for this side as well. So metric scores. So instead of having a paragraph here just to render the section name and its details, the metric score is going to contain more than that. So I'll get rid of the paragraph and then we are going to replace it with a div. Give it a class name of grade. Is going to be in a grade. So column of 1, and on a large screen we want to have the column to be 3 and gap to 6. So the result coming in from the AI, we have results.find R, which is going to be the result, and then we want to check where the section name is equal to metric scores. So once we have that, this is going to return an array because when we check the prompt, we have this object and the details is going to be an array. So we have to loop through these details as well. So back to the result modal, we are going to have the dot details, right? Dot map. So in the map, we have the metric itself, and then we have the metric index. Which is going to be a number. So we return that, and then we define these variables. So let's color. Notice that we have different colors for different score numbers. So for 8 and above, we have green, and then from 7 below, we have yellow, and from 1 to 5 or 6, I think, we have red. So we are going to have that in place. So if the metrics dot score is less than or equal to 0, we want to have the color to be, so this is supposed to be 8, not 0. So if the metric score is greater or equal to 8, we want to change the color to green. So we type this color code here, 4CE and F50. Put them in an quotation mark. And else if metric dot score is less than 5, we have the color to be red, right? So red is going to be F4 for 336. And then we have finally else we want the color to be yellow. So anything other than the two conditions defined, we want the color code to be yellow. So FFE B3B. So FFE 3. So FFE B3B, right? And we are going to return this div. So this div is going to have a key to help React render the necessary part of the page. So we have metrics index, and then a class name of flex call item center. So inside this div is where we are going to display the circular progress bar. So we give it a class name, a div of class name width 24 and height 24 to define the width of the progress bar, and then we call the circular progress. So it have a value property which we are going to get from the metrics.score multiplied by 10. Then we have the text to show inside the circular progress bar, we are going to have the metric score divided by 10, and the stroke width, or how thick the width to be, of 10. We provide these styles. So we have a text size of 16px, and then we have a path color. It's going to be color. The color variable that we created up at the top, and we have a color for the text, which is going to be the color, this variable here. And then we have trail color, which is going to be this particular color. So we have hash d6, d6, d6. So we are supposed to add the build styles before this works. So the build styles before we can get this to work. Alright, so the build styles is what we imported over here from the React circular progress. So let's create the final piece of this code and then test all together. So the final piece is going to be the close button. So we navigate over here, create a div, give it a class name, flex, and justify, and we create a button, on click, and close the modal. So this close button is just going to close the modal, right? And the class name, I'll give it a text of blue 500. Let's make it red. That makes sense. So red 500. And then the actual name of the button, so close. Alright, so before we test everything out, we have to get our API key and then paste it over here before it works. So moving to platform.openai.com/API-key, you can get your API key over there and paste it here, save it. Alright, so let's click on this test.sol file, copy it, and head back to localhost port 3000 and paste this smart contract here. Click on audit, and there we go. We have everything working perfectly fine. So next thing is to host this on Netlify. We open a new tab and search Netlify. Click on the first link and sign up if you don't have an account. So I already have an account. I will just log in. And click on add new site. So I will import from an existing project. So before you can deploy this to Netlify, you have to upload your code to either GitHub, GitLab, Bitbucket, or Microsoft Azure. So I have my code in GitHub. I'll click on GitHub, authorize, and then I will search for AuditAI. I will click on this and it shows me the setup page to enter or configure my deployment. So I am going to leave everything untouched. So if you want to give your site a name, you can choose to add the name over here. So let's write AuditAI and then leave everything else and create an environmental variable. So back to my .m file, copy public API key and then copy the API key as well. Paste that over here and click on deploy AuditAI. So we wait for some few seconds for this to finish processing and deploy it for us. So everything says completed over here, meaning the website have been deployed successfully. So we can click on preview and see our hosted website. If you have watched these tutorials up to this far, I want to say a special thank you for sticking around, and I hope you learned a lot in this tutorial. Comment, let me know what you think about this project. Is there something that we could have improved, or any suggestions that you have at all? Thank you for watching once again, and if you haven't subscribed, please consider subscribing. See you in the next one.